Before it gets too dark, I want to show you a little bit about the progress. It has been several months since this area was forest mulched. And you'll notice I got a truck in a different area over there because I'm about to drive the truck around to kind of get some feel of where stuff should be. But we've got a couple big sections over here. A lot of the trees that were cut out on the sides have turned brown. And you're going to notice a lot of this is starting to coppice out. So we've got where there was a stump, I got new growth. Now what's exciting about this new growth is what you don't see. So you see on the new growth where the deer's been munching and chumping, that is exciting because those deer have eaten those leaves out, and that tells me that we've got more deer activity here because we're essentially feeding the deer. So you can see down here the same thing with that right there. So I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead, and this has been an ongoing project that I'm managing, and it is going to run goats. And the reason it's going to run goats is because all these woods are a lot of undergrowth in the woods, and goats love that kind of thing, so do hogs. And that is a product that it can be managed on a smaller piece of land. So this is not ideal for cows. But we opened up different areas in the woods here to try to get some level spots for camping, and because this is a potential home site. Now we're not building the house right away, so we didn't want to have the land all opened up with nothing, with naked soil. So forest mulching was the objective we had here. You'll find links below to see the forest mulching videos. But I'm out here today. I'm going to drive the truck around and into some of these open spots. I came over here to pick up some stuff, and I'm going to drive the truck around and just get some little 3-point turns here and there and kind of get an idea of where is the level spot to put a pavilion. So the pavilion will go out here, and I'm going to choose whether I get a small pavilion for me to camp in. And I'm walking around first to make sure there's no overhanging branches, so I'm not driving the truck through branches. But I'm going to figure out where I want to put a pavilion so that when we camp out here later in the month, I got some shelter. But you can see these trails are starting to green up. All of that green pick is wonderful habitat for your deer, but it's also wonderful habitat later for your goats. Now, I don't have goats on the property because there's nobody here to manage them. So you never want to have your animals out here all by themselves to be predated by coyotes, which I do know are out on the property, and wild dogs and such as like that. So again, I really stress you doing something, getting a plan in motion, giving yourself timelines and limits, and focusing in on getting some kind of outcome. So here we've got, what's beautiful is a lot of the openings in the woods have established new edges. In the permaculture design, you want to have edges. Edges are great for silvopasture. The silvopasture design is great for edges, and edges are where your forest interacts with open spaces. And what you'll notice is there's much more green in these edges and a lot of small plant growth than there is deeper into the woods. So if I was to go deeper into the woods right here, now I know I'm covering a lot right now, but I want to make sure I give folks the update. But look, if we're deeper in the woods, you can see how there's very little pick in there. And it's kind of dark. But out here towards the edge, we got more light and we've got more pick. Now pick again is the small trees and branches and the little tender stuff that the deer can eat off of. The edges also give us nice open long paths where we can get a good clean shot and a safe backstop if we're talking about hunting. But if we're talking about running animals, I could certainly put a fence. This is wide enough that I could put a temporary fence down and still traverse around the outside while I've got goats in this center area. And then it's wide enough that if I had a portable shelter, I could drag the portable shelter through or in the perimeter of the enclosed area. See, I could pull it out down that way as well and run the animals in the middle. Now what that'll allow me to do is to produce animal meat on the land before it has any viability for a home site. So you can see this hill here is going to need some grading. But again, the goats, it's not too steep for the goats. The goats can live on it. So we're real excited to get somebody out on this land, whether they're in a cabin or whether they're in a house, because running the animals is the value add. Right now, it's just a beautiful recreational piece of property. So like when I drive the truck through here, I don't see too much big wood or anything that I'm going to have a problem with. It is a 4-wheel drive truck. It does its duty, but I'm not going to drive down in here. So what you can see here, this path has got a little more time on it. And I always dream that there's going to be a deer running across here, so you can see some of the nice little deer that are out in this area. But you can see how little grows back, but how it makes a green corridor. So the trails are much greener around the trails because the sun comes in, where deeper in the woods it's darker and less green. Animals eat the green. They don't eat the little stems as much. Overall, what we end up with is more airflow as well. And that airflow is going to help us with, hopefully we're going to get some grass on the ground here, but again, it's only been a couple months. But that airflow is going to help dry out this wood on the ground here. It does create a fire hazard, but also this wood is being picked up and piled so that we can have some campfires. Now with this, a big warning, I know a lot of people have asked, oh my gosh, you're going to have a great bonfire. I don't want to burn the wood for a bonfire. Okay, I'm going to burn the wood in a barrel to make charcoal. And as part of making the charcoal, we will stand around and enjoy it as if it was a bonfire. But when it's done, the majority of this wood will just be charcoal. It's not going to be all burned up into ash. We want charcoal in order to start restoring the ground here. Plus, I want to extract maximum energy value out of the wood rather than sending it up in the air and smoke. So that's something we do a little bit differently. So these trees on the outside here are more likely to become poles for a structure or an animal shelter. And these shredded pieces on the ground that are all dried out because of the good airflow are more likely to become the firewood. And then even then, the firewood will be burned in such a way inside of an enclosure to create charcoal and heat, and which we would benefit from the heat rather than stacking it up in a giant bonfire and risking catching the woods on fire. Because you can see all this stuff on the ground is definitely a fire hazard. Now what's great is that with all the rains that we've been having lately and all the, I don't really think I can walk up around here, but all the rains that we've been having lately, there's no erosion running. So again, the rain falls on this mulch, it spreads, soaks into the ground, and ultimately we have that water soakage in the ground, and that's again why all this green is starting to grow up here. So we've got a number of functions out of one activity. So rather than, clearing all this stuff and having mud and having dirt, we have biomass and habitat. And then also the resources of the firewood. And we also have, I don't see them out here, it's been super hot lately, but we also have mushrooms. And then as you can probably hear from walking around, we also have the hiking and the thing. But I think you could do hiking on a clear cut as well. So one last thing before I go here, I was just hoping I'd see some wild animals out here. I haven't seen any deer or anything like that. But you can see off in the distance there, that area was clear cut. It has regrown with small trees. The reason why this area with the wood chips hasn't regrown with small trees is because these wood chips are mulching the ground, and that mulch on the ground is inhibiting additional growth. Okay, so off in the distance, a lot of small trees are popping up because they scrape the ground to the soil. The soil panics. That's a little abstract. The soil doesn't really panic, but because the heat is now on the soil, the seeds can be activated and you start getting overgrowth. But in the case of this wood, there's like a thick layer of mulch. So it's got to go quite a way. You see how much moisture's in the ground there? It's got to go quite a way before you're going to get to a seed base that can grow out. So I'm getting moisture trapped in the ground, and it has really no place to go other than to start breaking down the mulch. But there's no exposure to light or to heat because we're now keeping the surface area cold. So we're not getting plants coming back. And I don't know that I want to walk all the way down there, but that's somebody else's property. They just did the old slash and burn clear cut type thing. And they're starting to get small little trees that came back. Where in my area, there aren't any trees coming back. No small trees coming back, and if they are, they're really tiny, and the deer are eating the tops out of them. So again, that's what we want. Oh, is that mushrooms? No, not really. Okay, so that's what we want, because again, I want to have a forest floor full of carbon rather than bare soil. Because a forest floor full of carbon is going to serve me over the long run better than a bunch of scrub trees that I have to flail mow again. I don't know if that makes any sense. But again, I hope I've answered the questions on an update. It's been a few months, and you'll see it hasn't changed a whole lot. And I'm driving a truck around to kind of get an idea of where access can be for a possible pavilion or building. And that pavilion, of course, is going to give us an outdoor kitchen area so that when we come out here and do some primitive camping, we have a little shelter to work with. But ultimately, these paths will stay open. So you can see off in the distance bare soil. But these paths are going to stay open for months, maybe even a year, because there's so much mulch, so much biomass, so much of the value of the previous trees on the ground rather than taken away. Again, it would be a whole different thing if we had big trees, but we don't have big trees. We have scrub like that. So it's a different approach. If you want me to look at a piece of property you have, I can tell with the LiDAR and the satellite pictures what kind of trees are on your land or what we should expect on your land. It's called forest cover density. And I can also tell based on land terrain where there used to be roads. Like for example, what's in front of me here is actually a property line, and there's a road right in front of me the whole length of the property line. So that's why it's a candidate area for an agricultural well and water lines, because that's probably what used to run down there, and there was no agricultural well, but that's probably where people ran tractors down before. The areas where there's thin brush and such are great for the goats, and they're segmented out because those edges are going to give us a lot of feed. Not all the feed, but some of the feed. And then having clearings around that like this that aren't going to get overgrown, let us run a portable shelter on the back of a pickup truck. So I can hook it to the hitch on the pickup truck, or I can hook it to the hitch on a tractor, and I can pull that thing right around here and move temporary fencing to keep the animals in bay. Do you see how this works out? I want to see this kind of results for your property. I want to see your property become fit for function so that you get the results you're looking for. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Keep sending in those questions. Keep running out to www.prosperityhomestead.org. Go to the contact page, ask your questions, and as we answer them, I'll get more videos online for you. I'll of course reply to you via email, and I'll show you how this works. I also have been visiting a few community gardens and other people's properties, so I can answer some of your questions using other ideas and concepts, because again, this solution is based on the land prior to my desires. Okay, so while I'm walking back up the hill, let me explain that to you as we wrap it up. This is how the land wants to express itself and how the land is protected to do more of what it wants to do. Right now, for the next probably 20 years, this land wants to grow a little scrub brush. Now, once it gets established trees, it decides whether it's hardwoods or pines. It'll start shadowing out some of the small brush, and it'll get more clearing between the trees. But right now, this wants to be scrub. So what wants scrub? Deer and goats. So I will get deer and goat on the property to serve the property. And then ultimately, as the land gets clearer and expresses larger trees, then I might introduce something different. Okay, that's what this is all about. So I want to show you what's growing on here. I want to show you how these paths stayed clear, how we have plenty of vehicle access. You know, it's beautiful if you can get a truck through. But again, the 4x4 or a side-by-side would have been in this thing day one with no big deal. And finally, I want to encourage you that if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you have questions about your property, I'd be more than happy to answer them, but you have to get over to the website at www.prosperityhomestead.org. And I'm going to leave you with the joy and excitement that I love to see when we're working on habitat. And look at that. That's some fresh deer doo-doo. Oh, that's a blessing. That's a blessing in and of itself. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. See you in the next video.